Hey there, Mark and Juliana. I thought I would come on, as I said, and explain this highly complicated summary of the last year of my life. Okay, so starting at the top left corner, I'm sure you can see the mouse here. The $163,000, that was the total figure that George the benefactor paid for all the different things that he paid. And the breakdown of that, looking below that, um, the contractor fees is what he called the supplementary salary that he was providing, and that was $3,000 a month for 12 months, so that was 36. The 12 months of rent of 3,400 was 40 odd thousand there, and the rest of that, which is 86,000, was other expenses that he provided. And a lot of those expenses were just one-time expenses, and also they're things that were regular back then would not be continuing in 2016. So that's just, and of course, the production of the album Almost Blue, which was, we were able to really take some great opportunity there, and it was almost around 50,000 for that. So that's all factored into that 86,000. Okay, so moving across here, my total gross income, and by the way, this is me, this is not including any of the income that was provided by the benefactor. So my gross income was 63,000 US dollars last year, and that also included money that I had to pay the musicians. So, if I was paid $1,000 for a gig for the trio, some of that money will go out to the musicians, and I'd be left with a couple of hundred, as an example. So importantly, the amount that I paid musicians last year over on the far right was 19,000. So taking that out, my net income, like by myself, was 44,000, and that included a couple of extra things like subletting my apartment when I was in Australia or wherever. It included royalties, which was only about $700 that year, and all those kind of little things as well. Of course, cash gigs as well. I'll show you in my spreadsheet in a second, but cash gigs, check gigs, and all that kind of stuff. Now, let's talk about the gross business expenses that I incurred. Um, and that this is the figure that's $53,703. That figure, for one thing, includes rent. Now, the rent, as you can see over here, was a little over 40,000. So most of that figure is actually the rent. Now, as I said, all of the one-off expenses I took out of that figure, because the idea with this figure is I'm trying to break it down as small as possible so I can look ahead for 2017 to see what is really going to be there and are really going to be needed. So there's rent in there. So not including album expenses and any expenses that won't happen in 2017. And I'll move across to the next one. Gross living expenses, 17,000. So that's, as I mentioned in the email, food, clothing, medical, laundry, groceries, all those kind of things that really have to be there. Anything kind of leisure or anything that really was a choice that didn't really have to happen is not there. That's just the real essentials. Okay, so if we I'm going to actually go to the Excel spreadsheet for a second. It's just sort of the reason I wanted to put it on a flat screen, like on a one picture, was because Excel, there's so much here that it kind of moves around and it's hard to navigate. And it's also a huge document. But like I was saying in the email, I have an app that I log every single expense from a snack to an office supply to when I pay a musician for the whole year. So all of those things are there. And the columns, as you'll see here, income I logged here, business expenses, living expenses, but expenses that are not counted in our 2017 Outlook are there. So I just wanted to show you that actually did exist, and it's a huge document. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'll get rid of that again and pull up the... So looking ahead for 2017, so the timing of my benefactor stopping his support with where my income is in life from gigs or really from anything was unfortunately not great timing to do all the projects that we were doing, and as well as just traveling so much of the last part of the year and all that kind of stuff. I had to retract, and I have over the past couple of years retracted somewhat from the local scene of doing 5 or 6 gigs a week. And part of that has been our choice to try and move up and push me out there as a solo artist and not just as a sideman piano player in New York. And I'm very proud to say that most of the gigs we did in 2016, we actually reached that goal where most of the gigs were under my own name, the Matt Baker Trio or whatsoever. So that everything comes with a trade-off, and the trade-off of that was that when there's no Matt Baker and the trio doing a tour or a gig, there's not much gig work here because I'm not now one of those quick call piano players that I used to be 3 and 4 years ago. But as you know, we wanted to get out of that as well. So right now, like my income for January and half of February and averaged out and then annualized is only $17,000. And as I said in the email, later in the year, if not earlier, that will rise. It's always busier later in the year as it is. But what I'm working on and launching, we really envisage that to be bringing in income a lot earlier than 12 months from now. But right now, which is the immediate need, is in looking ahead into the short term, that's what I should go by, because that's really what is there looking at it in the next months. Okay, so let's move across to here. The expenditure needs for 2017, which is both the business, this $53,000 figure, and the living expenses make $71,000. If we take my income off that, it's $53,794. So what I then did with that figure is split it up again into living, rent, and business expenses, and then divided that by 12 and had a look at the deficits per month. There's the rent. As you can see, from May onwards, when the new lease starts, is $3,500, which is $42,000 a year. And the business expenses, which is again this 53 figure minus the rent, is $11,000. So $11,000 in the year of real necessary musical business expenses. And so when you divide all those by 12 per month, there is the cost is almost $6,000. It's costing me about $6,000 to live per month, and then taking my income off that at the moment. Right now, jumping down to the bottom because my rent is being paid up until May. The deficit is only $982 a month. That I'm going backwards, and like I said in the email, that I can sustain that just for a little bit. In reality, it would be more than that because I'm also throwing extra money that I'm not accounting for here into these new businesses that I'm starting. And there's also other costs, day-to-day living that I didn't put in here. Just little ones, but the reality is it is a little more than that. But the major thing is from May onwards, when the rent stops being provided and the new lease starts. Essentially, we're adding $3,500 to that $900 figure, and so the deficit from May onwards is $4,482, and that's when things are really dangerous for me, and where is more important to look necessarily than the immediate future for the next 2 months or so. Anyway, so I hope that helps. That's an explanation of the balance sheet. And everything else should be in the email. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, thanks.